Good evening, everybody. Right, I'll start off with the usual bits. As there's no members of the public, I can skip through most of it. The important one is phones off, and should there be a fire, use the staircase to go to the courtyard car park, but be careful because we've had Bob the Builder out there. It's a large bit of sheet timber by the blue container, which you'll fall over and trip over. So much for health and safety. No, there's no public here, that bit's fine. So we go to the agenda. Apologies for absence, no, skip that. Are there any declarations of interest? Nope. No. Right, let me go to the minutes of the previous Westley Heights Area Committee held on the 4th of November last year. Those in favour of the minutes? Councillor Robbins? That's unanimous, right, so that bit's done. Just leaving that to be signed later. Okay. So we'll funding considerations on page 13 to 14. I'll give you an update on some of them. We've had a delay with the Lady Basildon Path at Club Kingswood. Apparently, the car park, we need some parking spaces next to where the path's going to be laid. And one of the providers there, not the golf course, told us contractors that they're really busy in January, February, that people come out in the freezing cold, wet weather to do whatever activities there. So it's been held back till June when the ground will be dry and we'll be able to park the plant on the green fields, and then the guys can lay the path down. We have done everything we can, but apparently they didn't want us parking on their car park to put a path down for their customers. And there's a preschool that used the building, and it has been worrying me, but I want to put it on the record. We put people first rather than be Mrs. Bouquet about a council contractor being there. I think that's fair to say, Rob. Yep. So, and we've funded previous rounds of salt bins, and I've given a locations grant to Alan Underdown well before Christmas, and I don't see them. Yeah, because we wanted one outside Trafford House, two along Morello Quarter, because that's north face and freezing cold, the shops where Vange Library are, and a few other places, and I've not seen them. And I only raised this because one, we agreed it, and two, according to the press online, the middle of March is going to be a bit icy and snowy. I think that story could apply to somewhere in Scotland, but you never know. So if there's a snow bomb, as they like to call it, or the beast from the east, and we've agreed salt bins before Christmas, or when we met last, it was like last November, the officers have had the location and they're not installed, and if we get that blast of snow, that doesn't look good. So that needs to be chased up, and I'd appreciate a written reply for not just myself but members of this committee. You asked to speak, Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, Kerry, you said the shops outside of Vange Library. You actually said Vange Library in the initial allocation. The shops are different. It's two different places. But as you Southview Road and a 10-storey block of flats in between them.
As you know, Councillor Murphy, there's a parade of shops at Kingswood. There's those parade of shops by Vange Library, and there's a parade of shops where the barge used to be on Clayle Road. So yeah, that's what we like to call it. By Vange Library.
Right, well, you didn't mention shops in the original one, you just said by Vange Library.
Well, let's not split hairs, please, Councillor Murphy.
I think I told them down the surgery they're getting one now, and they were not.
Well, let's not split hairs. We can talk about that later. Okay. Can you switch your mic off, please, Councillor Murphy? Thank you. Right, so that's covering from the previous ones. I understand the last crunch we funded at Kingswood, it wasn't that well attended. Maybe that was a case of the weather. I do not know. But I think we need to look for another location that Kingswood residents can access. And one of the crunchies that were funded when we took over the council in the summer for Lee Chapel South, it caused serious parking problems. So we were going to have to think of ideas for other, better sites to hold crunchies from a safety point of view, and obviously making it easy and convenient. Was there something else I wanted to mention from issues we've raised in the minutes? This is to Grant Taylor. The Christmas light switch on ceremony, many of my members here tonight attended the one in Langdon Hills. And I thought I'll put the proof to the pudding, because everything we ever do, I'll go and get my printing press out and print something up, run it through my folding machine, and we'll punch it through the local doors. And the council's press office is like, oh, no, it's always Facebook. So I said to my group, OK, let's put the council at their word. And the house directly opposite it in Debden Green, the lady went, hello, Kerry, what's going on? Well, I'm told, like, the council are pushing this all out across Facebook. You don't know? No. So I thought, well, that's helpful. That is helpful. And it was a nice carol service by the kids, but these children were from De La Salles. And literally 2 minutes walk, or a minute and a half if you're Linford Christie, there's Linkswood Primary School. And there was cars all parked up very tight in Debden Green. I was a bit concerned, and so was Councillor Tori Joseph, because she came along as Deputy Mayor. So if we do consider something like that again, far better publicity, must be the local primary school, because the whole idea is the children can just walk across the road. It's a very short walk, because you encourage, you're not having to fill up parking spaces that are limited. And go and buy a few more strings of lights. Honestly, I looked at that, and I looked at Councillor Joseph and Councillor Robbins, and I went, who went in B&M bought one string of lights for that Christmas tree? It's a lovely tree, but just one string of lights. But the Residents Association there said, at some point, could we fund the installation of a real Christmas tree? That's more your field, isn't it, Rob? You have any ideas of how big the tree plot, when we buy a tree that's living? So you've got some rough ideas, please.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Recently we planted a Christmas tree for the Pitsea Area Committee in Northlands Park. That, I believe the height of that was between 12, 13 foot in height. And I believe that was around £500, £600 in cost. That's planted as well.
What'd you get for £1,000 for a Christmas tree in height?
Slightly larger. It depends on the stock and where we go. But if that's something, we wouldn't be planting any trees this time of year now. We're now getting to a time where we might lose it. But if we was to look at that closer to the time, we could see what's available around. If we start inquiring around October, ready for planting prior to Christmas.
Members, what do you think? Is it better now that the Residents Association have said to me they'd like a living tree, and I'm sure you know, Rob, the Langdon Hills State Residents Association, that we could plant a real tree, give you an idea of up to £1,000, plant that October time, early November. The ground's getting wet, but it's not saturated. And then it's cheaper than spending $1,500 every year on a tree we put up that's going to die. And when we could put a real one, and we could speak to the Residents Association and say, you take the ownership, we've supplied the tree, we can give you a grant for the lights, and look at costings about the electricity supply and everything else. But they did like the picket fence. So I think long-term wise, that would be an area of saving. But that's helpful to know. So with the other Christmas tree you mentioned, about £600–800. Because someone said to me about the shops on Clare Road by the Owl and the Pussycat. It's not next to the Owl and Pussycat, but it's by the Owl and Pussycat, in case Councillor Murphy wants to jump up. Because some residents there have said about a Christmas tree, so I think that would look nice. And the other two silver perch trees are dead there. Okay, so we've gone over, I think, what we've spent recently. Does anyone want to add to that before we go to funding considerations? Yes, Councillor Murphy.
Quick one. Where's the electricity supply coming from?
Don't ask, don't tell. No, Councillor, sorry, Rob will be able to answer that, but normally from the nearest lamppost.
That's correct. So we'd have to get permission from Essex County Council, depending on the location, if it could be a Basildon Council lighting or Essex County Council, but we would require permission if it wasn't ours.
That's why I said, Councillor Murphy, don't ask, don't tell. They take enough off Basildon, so if we can nick some of their electric, I'd happily do that because it's reclaiming some of our money. Councillor Larkin.
Have we gone round to the farmers and perhaps the garden centres, asking them to donate? They used to.
Michelle, Dave
No, we haven't as yet. Like I said, the last one in Norton's Park was purchased by our parks team. But again, it's something that obviously we can certainly look at for you.
Right. I shall carry on with the agenda as such, but I'd like to say when we spend people's money, we want to make sure it's all proper and above board, because we've got a lot of constituents that like walking the parks and taking their dogs out, and we like our dogs, and not some bodies
Can I
across.
just mention that again?
Yes,
Because
Councillor Larkin.
they can put a plaque on it, and I mean, it's going to be a lot of farmers and garden centres that would be quite willing to do that, supplied by whatever. It's a bit of advertising for them as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Officer Grant Taylor's picked up on that, so that's good. Right, so we're on page 13, and we're looking at areas to spend money on. We'll skip item 1 for a second, we'll deal with that last. So item 2 is £3,000 worth of funding awarded to the Friends of Langdon Ridge. And just to be clear, that's not just in Langdon Hills. That carries on to Kingswood and bits of Vange, because former resident Rod Cole was heavily involved with this, and all the nature stuff. And Councillor Larkin will remember Rod Cole, you know, and all the good work he's done. So this is to lay 200-yard lengths. Sorry, someone's put it in continental. We'll call it what it is, a yard. 200-yard length of traditional hedgerow alongside bridleway footpath from the Westley Heights Believing Basildon Fund. That's the 20 grand. Is there any more detail on here? Oh yeah, so if you turn to page 15, so laying the hedge will reduce the height to a point where views across the adjacent meadow will be opened up, giving excellent views of the meadow and woodland to the west. It will also increase the light level along the path, making it safer for those to use it. The increase in light will encourage a diverse range of wildflowers to grow in the grass verges along the path. The edges will be encouraged to thicken in width, thereby provide shelter for wildlife such as nesting bats and small mammals. And there's someone living nearby who's got a cat. Once the hedge has been laid, it will need to be maintained on a regular basis by cutting back vertical shoots and encouraging them to grow horizontal. This can be done on a biannual basis by the volunteers from the Friends of Langdon Bridge, using the equipment included in the costings of this project. So those of you who go out in the countryside or go past these sort of places, you know that hawthorn type thing where it's just been cut and it's just pointing that way. That's the kind of work they're doing. Anyone have any points on that or anything the officers wish to add? Okay, we'll take the vote on item 2. So item 2, I've read that out to you what it is. The Friends of Langdon Ridge, £3,000. Those in favour? Brilliant. Item 2, funding awarded to the Friends of Great Berry towards the cost of purchasing and installing 2 conversation benches. No, these don't talk, it's just what they're called. And planter for Great Berry open space from the Westley Heights Believing Basildon Fund. That's again that smaller pot of money. Those of you who ever go to the shops at Great Berry will see all the planters they pop up, and because before it was just grass growing around the base of those cherry trees in the car park. So they've put some nice edging around it, put some compost in, bought some flowers, grown some flowering plants, put them in. It always looks pretty, apart from the winter time where nothing grows. They've done some painting around the fencing of the play equipment, all bright colours. and stuff in the park to make it look better. And as we know, that part of Basildon, there isn't really the yobs to wreck or damage it. So, does anyone wish to add to that? Right, so I'll go to the recommendation, which is again on page 13. So it's £2,000 funding towards the Friends of Great Berry, towards the cost of purchasing and installing 2 conversation benches and planter for the Great Berry Open Space in Langdon Hills from the Believe in Basildon Fund. Those in favour? That's unanimous. Then item 4, £5,000 investment towards improvements and road repairs on the Crooked Brook Estate. Breakdown 3,100 Believe in Basildon Fund and 1,900 from the Community Priority Fund. Bit of background, this is in Nethermainwold. It's one of these estates that has never been adopted by our dear little friends in Essex Highways, and I can see why residents don't rush to allow Essex Highways to adopt their roads, because look at the state of our regular roads, and the residents would have to bring them up to such a high standard that no money would have to be spent on them for 35 years. So those who have any involvement with planning will see new developments, the developer making as many of the end parts of a road private, that bit private on a new estates road, because people, they come down from Essex Highways and the lights and the highways part has got to last 35 years. So those residents in those new houses, or residents on private roads wishing to spend their money so the road is adopted, will be paying council tax for 35 years and not needing any highway repairs, where county banks that money and go, oh, those poor souls in Epping, that highway was only just resurfaced 5 years ago. Oh, we're giving that another freshen up. It's only Basildon's money. But come May 28, that'll all be over, and they'll have a dose of the real world, and we can get our roads fixed. But so, getting back to this request, the Residents Association group, the Crooked Brook Estate Residents Association, they're going to put up half the money. We're going to put up the other half, so they can get their highways to a better standard. If anyone has a drive round there, there's a few highway issues, but they pay a lot of council tax to residents. Our dust carts go down there. If someone needs support for services for older people or a public sector worker like a doctor to go down there, it's their vehicle using that road. As I say, the dust carts using that road. They pay their council tax. They don't get any highway works because their roads are private. So I think this is fair. Because back in the day, you used to have one dust cart once a week, and now you're getting a multitude of vehicles at different times, which is wear and tear, and the residents of those houses have to pay for the maintenance. And if it gives any more background, if you go into Corringham, there's an estate called the Frost Estate. It was a few years ago since I last drove around there. And the roads around there are in a terrible condition because, again, dust carts once a week. And now they have a multitude of dust carts every week or thereabouts. And it led to the residents there having to fork out a fortune, I understand, on bringing this private road up to a decent standard. So I think this is being fair. The residents there are putting up half the money. We're meeting them with the other half. Once this is agreed, hopefully, they can get cracking and make their roads a lot better, because Essex will not fix them because they're private. Are there any questions, please? Councillor Green.
Excuse my ignorance. Where is the Crooked Brook Estate exactly? Sorry.
It's that little bit of fobbing that comes under Basildon. Because the borough boundary between us and Thurrock are based on the old parishes. So when you see that weird boundary through Bells Hill Road, some of it is Thurrock and the rest of it is Basildon. That bit that's us is the old parish of Vange, and the bit that's Thurrock was the old parish of Fobbing, and the same with the Crooked Brook Estate. That was in the old parish of Vange, and the rest of Fobbing was the old parish of Fobbing. So in the 30s, when they started forming urban or rural district councils back then, they didn't look at the most sensible boundaries. They just went, well, these particular parishes will make up this new authority, these particular parishes. and didn't mess around the boundaries of the parishes. So this is why we've got this peculiar situation.
It's where you go to Five Bells roundabout
Yeah.
on the road up to that little
Garden centre.
garden
Yeah,
centre. It's
which
the house is off on the right, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay. Now I know. I'm clear. Thank you.
Furthering on for that, if what's going to happen in 28, I know it's very, very early yet, but are we going to consider adopting all these roads?
That's an academic question. When you look at the state of, as I said at County Hall last year, look at the state of the A13. You go into Thurrock, which is bankrupt, the A13 is mint. You come into Basildon, you'd think we was the bankrupt one. And after that, County grudgingly resurfaced it, and now that's all starting to lift up. That's what a great job they do. So I think with Baz Exit, the first few years are going to be fixing up the roads in Basildon that they have neglected. As for these private ones, that's a conversation for the new authority. And obviously the residents living there, but there's a road in Pitsea, Ramsey Drive, that's a private road and that's in a terrible state. But one price, I inquired with County, that's like 128 grand the householders there would have to spend, and that rough costing I got 5 years ago, and that's cigarette box math, so no one hold me to that, but that was the figure I was given approximately by Highway Officer at County, just to bring Ramsey Drive up to a standard that County would adopt. Now, there's not many houses along there, and that'd be a few quid for every one of them to fork out. So, and County wouldn't lay out. So, if we started doing, as you asked about, that's just one street. And we've got a few across the borough. I'm sure there's some in Billericay and Wickford, so it'd have to be a case by case and the new locally elected members making that representation. But what we're doing here today will ensure that estate is not a priority, because the residents are putting up half, we're putting up the other half, and they won't be using Essex Highways to do the work, so it should last a long time. Where I come out of the house today onto the road, they patched a pothole 2 weeks ago, that's all lifted up, and now it's back today. Bodge it and leg it. And as you know, once we get unitary, if they start here bodge it and leg it, they'll be bodge it, leg it, sign on. You're fired. No more taking nonsense off of them. Any other questions on that point? No? Right, so let's go to the recommendation again. On page 13, which I read out to you, but just a general note, £5,000 as broken down on item 4. Those in favour? That is unanimous. Item 5, investment to purchase 2 dog bins and 10 salt bins in the Never Main ward from the Never Main Community Priority Fund. The reason this is done like this, let's start the 2 dog bins. Do you want the locations, Grant? Or yourself, Dave? Okay. The shops at the one-stop shop, London Road, Vange, near Merrick's View Court, I think it's called. You'll see a council litter bin there, so let me start again. If you cross from Moss Drive across the London Road, Vange, there's a council litter bin there, and then you see the car park for the one-stop shop and the chemist. That litter bin's always got dog poo bags put on top or in it, and it's quite a well-used litter bin. So I think if we have a dog bin next to it, the litter bin's for litter and the dog stuff's separate. The other location is Maplesford Sweep, near the junction with Furlongs off the top of my head, where we used to have play equipment that was removed last year. There's a Royal Mail grey pouch box, and someone's ripped the door off, and in the shelves in this box, people pick up their dog's doings in bags and they're putting it in the pouch box shelves. So if we can put a dog bin next to it, that's hygienic. We have all asked, myself, Councillor Murphy, to have Royal Mail remove this pouch box, but they're saying 5 years. Well, myself, Councillor Robbins, Councillor Green and Councillor Brown has asked about a pouch box in Langdon Hills off of Berry Lane to be removed, and it's the same 5 years. They're just hoping, I think, it rusts away or some metal thieves nick it. Well, what they've put the price of a stamp up to, they've got to look after their shareholders at our residents' expense. So you've got both locations for the dog bins, yeah? So on Maplesford Sweep, we'll double check with you after the meeting. One moment, Councillor Robbins, and the one stop. Councillor Robbins.
We need a bigger dog bin in Pitfields.
Right.
Because it's loose.
Is it damaged?
It comes away from the post.
So that's a damage. Could you switch your mic off, please, Councillor Robbins? So that's a damaged dog bin. Make the inquiry to Council Inquiries and have that damaged dog bin replaced. Councillor Murphy.
I'm fully in support of having dog bins, but I have been down Mandeville Way 3 or 4 times in the last 2 or 3 days, and the one 2/3 of the way down from the Basildon end, the box, we call it a box, is now that high on top. A nice little, it's like the Great Pyramid of Giza. It obviously isn't being emptied on a regular basis. I mean, how often? It's all right putting new stuff in, rubbish bins, salt bins and dog bins, but they have to be put on a rota where they're going to be emptied on a regular basis, or with a case of salt bins, filled on a regular basis. They're always filled in the summer. First bit of ice, everybody nicks some and borrows some and throws some around. They're empty, and then next day there's more ice and nothing there. We'll have to go, the officers or whoever's dealing with these things have to put in a robust collecting regime or filling regime to make sure these things are done on a regular basis. To my mind, until this is done properly, there's no good adding to the problem. I'm sorry, Kerry, but if you're not emptying the ones you've got, which is quite regular. I mean, as you know, I'm a cab driver. I drive around all the time, and I see this all the time.
Right, thank you for that, Councillor Murphy. They are being empty. Before some, I would say moron, but they've had quite a few quid off the taxpayer and got another similar job. So maybe this person should be negotiating a peace with Ukraine because they're quite smart. And we had a weekly bin service. This was never an issue. It might pop up your dog bin that hadn't been emptied, and that was a genuine slip up, yeah? But since the bins have been imposed on people to be fortnightly, it's just been mad. So, for example, the dog bin collections in Langdon Hills used to be once a week. It's in some places 3 times a week. A Monday, a Wednesday if needs be, but definitely on a Friday. And Easter last year, the dog bins weren't picked up on the Thursday before Easter. We all know the drill, it's job and not type thing. And that Easter weekend we were just getting complaints galore, and they weren't picked up till the following Tuesday. So I can understand why residents who have been unfairly forced to have them small black wheelie bins collected once a fortnight. It's not who's in charge of the council as far as the public are concerned. It is their council. They've paid their council tax, they've lost their weekly bin service. We provide them a dog bin, and residents, I do not blame them for sort of taking the dog poo home, purposely now stay on the route where there's a council dog bin, saying you've took away my weekly service, there's the dog's doing. I am not having that festering for 2 weeks in the bin. In summer that must pen and ink. So when we go back to weekly bin collections on the 28th of April, this situation will improve. But the only way to really address it is going round to every dog bin pretty much Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, emptying them in the busy areas. But then on Saturday and Sunday they're full. So once the 28th of April has been and gone and we've got a weekly bin service, this problem I think will drop off. Because people would like to obviously walk their dogs in a way that's not boring and not have to keep going around the same route. But if you've got that bag of dog poo, you've got to take home, put in your black bin, festering for 2 weeks. You're not going to do it. If it's a weekly service, you're not capped at what you can put out because most people can get by with a bin, and we have made it easy if they want a second wheelie bin. I think this problem will die off, but that bin you're talking about is quite busy. It's at the bottom of Shakespeare Avenue, facing on Mandeville Way. So the members here for Langdon Hills and myself as the county councillor will raise that again. But that's a very busy path, and I had that dog bin put in there so in 2018 thereabouts. So it just shows you how effective dog bins are. But this request here tonight is ensuring the dog waste is placed in a hygienic manner. They shouldn't be sitting on top of a council litter bin in the height for summer with the flies landing on them. They shouldn't be on a pouch box that's wide open, because again, flies touch them, they fly into someone's house, touch their kitchen table, it spreads diseases, it's not clean. Did you want to come back, Councillor Murphy?
I was just thinking, if that one's particularly busy, bearing in mind that the pole is in situ and you've got a dog bin one side, could not another dog bin perhaps be put on the other side, or lower on the other side?
Well, I think, oh sorry, your mic's still on, Councillor Murphy. I think what might be a better idea is myself, Councillor Robbins, Councillor Green, Councillor Brown, the members for Langdon Hills, think of where else along Mandeville Way we could put some dog bins. Because like we say, if one is being well used, then I think when we get our next budget, we buy a couple more dog bins from Mandeville Way area to take that pressure off. But before the bins were, one moment, Councillor Robbins, before the bins were muffed about with, and it was a weekly service, you could count on your one hand how many issues in your ward you'd have a problem with a dog bin. But the fortnightly bin service has made this terrible. Councillor Robbins.
A lot of people walk their dogs along Mandeville Way, I do, and I find out to take it home. But it's not just the dog bins that are not being emptied, it's the rubbish bin by the bottom of the stairs. It's overflowing, it doesn't get emptied. And it's along that road.
And as always, you always report them with your colleagues. But I have a little bin at the end of my house. And one of my former neighbours who's just moved, she's got babies, and I used to see her put the nappy in the bin and I'd say, good luck to you. She shouldn't be doing it. But she lost a weekly hygienic bin system for this rotten, disgusting thing we've been imposed with. And who would want a nappy festering in their bin for a fortnight? It's a health hazard. And I got stopped walking out my house by two ladies who are dyed-in-the-wall conservatives, not having a go because they're conservatives, but they're dyed in the wall. And they went, "You going to pull that woman up, put the nappies in the bin?" And I said to them, good luck to her. I know she shouldn't do it, but good luck to her. All right, I'm not a moron who voted for the party that took away our weekly bin service for that disgusting filth. Bins were put in to keep the public safe, and councils were created in the first place by the Victorians to protect the public health. And when councils fail on that, we're failing the public. We're failing our primary duty for existing, to protect the public health. So the 28th of April, the bins are going back to weekly. The area committee will be meeting many times after that. And when issues come up of needing new bins and dog bins, we have the funds there to deal with that. And on the last point, unless anyone else wants to add anything, the county council says to each county councillor, you have £5,000, and what you're supposed to do is go around to all the parish councils like, there's some money for you, there's some money for you. So again, this is why we've got this disconnect with Essex, because some of these divisions in Essex are huge, absolutely huge, geographically, but hardly anyone lives there. So, and a multitude of parish councils. So, I have no parishes in my area as a county councillor. What I always do is think, well, where could we spend that money on things improving locally? So, last year and this year, that money's been spent on replacing litter bins that have seen better days. So rather than other county councillors across the county just wasting that £5,000, sort of making themselves look good on nondescript things, as I said last year, and it's just been agreed for this year, a list of litter bins and dog bins that have needed replacing. I've asked council officers, they have supplied me with the list, the costing, put the form into Essex, they've approved. So there's about 20 bins off the top of my head across Langdon Hills and Nevermain, but not the Vange part of Nevermain because that's not my Westley Heights division, will be getting upgraded and replaced. And the worst one is the church, All Saints Church on London Road, Vange. That's in quite a dangerous condition, so once county signed off on that paperwork anytime soon, Basildon Council can replace that litter bin, so that makes it safe. Yes, Councillor Murphy.
You know what I'm going to bring up is the two by the Vange Library are still the original ones from the Commissioner for Newtown. They're actually fiberglass and they're now a chunk's come out the side of one of them. I'm still discussing with the officers whether we're even going to empty them because there's a debate of which ground they're on, even though I keep telling them if we don't do it, who is supposed to do it? And bearing in mind that the people who have it is our ground in one respect, but we've leased it to Openreach, the drug rehabilitation group. Are we expecting them to do it? Or are we expected, one is right on the corner of Essex County Council, are we expecting Essex County to do one in the middle of nowhere? So I think it needs to be looked in, certain areas need to be looked in very seriously to bearing in mind what's going to happen, that it seems that Essex County Council are going, so we're going to end up doing it. Is it better to do it now and get it all, you know, ship shape over the next couple of years, or leave it until such times as Essex go and then do it? I prefer to do it now. An old tatty bin is fine, but a bin that's been there for 60, 70 years, 80 years now, disintegrating, spreading fiberglass everywhere is not the best of ideas, and they're also open. So the foxes quite happily oik them out most of the time, and that's why I want them emptied regularly, because of that point.
Are you talking, Councillor Murphy, the two salt bins in Southview Road?
No, I'm talking about the two litter bins which are on the outside the Openreach at the car park, which is the Vange Hill Library, which the car park is actually owned by the National. This is the ridiculous part of it. The building, the surgery and the car park is owned by the National Health Service. The library and the surrounding bits owned by Essex County Council. The path outside the Openreach is owned by Essex County Council. The square is owned by Essex County Council. The path going from St James's Close to Clayhill Road is owned by Essex County Council, but the 2 foot of earth on the right hand side of it is owned by Basildon Council. The original building, which is now the drug rehabilitation, which was the old rent office, has been leased, sold or whatever, I haven't found out yet. I'm trying to find out to Openreach. But within that, on the original, where the car park was owned by the National Health Service, 10 car parking spaces had the right of use by the old rent office. Now, whether that's gone to the Openreach, I don't know, of which 5 of them are in terrible condition. I have mentioned this to you, trying to get those repaired by somebody, somehow, somewhen. I'm having a meeting with the premises team of NHS via the surgery manager S.
I'll tell you what, Councillor Murphy, let's draw a line under that, and you might please. So until you've resolved that all, it's no good us agreeing to things that aren't on the agenda, like new litter bins, until that's all agreed, and then we can take care of that. But the money Basildon Hospital's skimping on cancer patients. My mother would still be here if she could have had 90 minutes on the operating table of her having heated chemotherapy, as they were doing in America at the time. But the surgeons wanted their round of golf, and the management wanted to save their penny pinching, and there's more than one case like that. It's happening all the time, the NHS. So if they got money a penny pinch, they got money to fix their land with. And if they ain't got the money, they can do an Elon Musk and go round there and go, don't need you, bureaucrat, don't need you, bureaucrat, you're not treating people, goodbye. So I support the NHS, but it needs someone to go through it, root and branch now. I think we've got a good health secretary, he's not going to mess around them, but if we go around fixing their land, what happens when they want to do something with that land? Maybe they want to put a restriction on there. They could get a new doctor there who's got a flash new car. You know, the parking bays ain't big enough. You know, don't worry about his patients. He needs the bays made bigger. But if we've spent money making them better, we won't dwell on that point because we've got presentations.
Yeah,
Unless it is quick, Councillor Murphy.
I'm just saying I am trying to sort it out, Kerry. The problem is it took nearly 3 months to get the it took 3 months to get this and a month to get that.
Councillor Murphy, when you get an update on this, come back and we'll deal with it. But while you're dealing with the bureaucrats and the NHS land, and Councillor Green and Councillor Robbins and Councillor Brown will tell you, we've had this with the Langdon Shopping Centre, they hold up with the NHS land. That's another thing you could quite easily get rid of, and more people would be getting the treatment they'd be needing if you got rid of that quango and the bureaucrats behind it. So we'll crack on. So, and the remaining 10 dog bins we were up. Was it 10? Yes, 10 salt bins. The reason for that, these will be mostly focused around the bit that's been added to Nevermain Ward from the old Vange Ward, because as County Councillor for Langdon Hills, the Kingswood and the original part of Vange that was always in Nevermain Ward, I can go to County, get them to put salt bins in, or I've asked Basildon Council when Ringway Jacobs reckon they cost £6.5 grand. Yeah, and we can do that for a fraction. In fact, we can do 10 salt bins and 2 dog bins for £2,180, but County does a salt bin for £6.5 grand. But anyway, so the point is, in the Vangill Drive bit that's been added to Nevermain Ward, there are many old fiberglass salt bins. There are many locations which are poor for sunlight, they're curved, they've got a graduation in the land where they should have a salt bin, so that in icy weather the residents, as in other parts, can just go out with a bucket and a spade, throw a bit of salt on the road, and people can get around safely and avoid accidents. So that will be the priority. So any of us three members for Nevermain Ward, contact me. I'll get the list of 10 salt bins, give them to Alan Underdown, who's the officer dealing with this, and they can be replaced there and there, you know, as and when. So that's the point about that. So if there's no other comments on this subject, I'm going to put this item to the vote, please, which is on again on page 13. So that's £2,180 for 2 dog bins and 2 salt bins in Nevermain Ward from the Community Priority Fund. Those in favour? That is unanimous. And just to clarify, it is on the junction of Mapleford Sweet, but it's in Collingwood Road, where the old play equipment was, and there's that grey Royal Mail pouch box. If you pull up, you won't miss it because it's not a pretty sight. So then we go to the original item at the top, £1,500 for the next crunch. Do we have an idea when that crunch weekend is, please?
Yeah, it's the 29th of March.
So it's the 29th of March. Where do we want it? First off, is it Langdon Hills or Nevermain? Councillor. I know the ward members are going to say their own walls, but what the aim is, it's to tackle the fly tipping and the rubbish. That's the whole point of it, because I will come to you in a moment, Councillor Murphy. Anyone who knows Pitsy Tip, the way the county council runs it, if you take waste there that can't be recycled, who gets the cost of the landfill tax? It's county. So if you dump your sofa on the high road, it's Basildon Council that gets the cost of picking it up. It's Basildon Council that gets the cost of the landfill tax, which should have been abolished when we had Brexit because it was the EU landfill tax. Good old Boris dropped the word EU and decided to keep the money here instead. So I think from the taxpayer's point of view, we've got to go for the part in the Westley Heights Area Committee's boundaries where we are getting the most incidents of fly tipping and where people would struggle to take stuff to the tip. So one area officers have suggested to me is Vange Library, which, as Councillor Murphy always keeps bringing up, that car park at Vange Library.
I'm going to get it done.
Hold on. But we had funded one in Langdon Hills. But if we fund this one in Vange Hill Drive, bordering Kingswood, the next area committee, we can then say Langdon Hills. But I've been recently round Vange Hill Drive, and residents have sent me pictures of where people are just piling up the rubbish. Shouldn't be doing it. A lady stopped me at Polstead. There's a communal block of for the people in the flats. It's even got wrought iron gates. It's like saying out of Stalag Luft. All you need is a couple of German soldiers and a German shepherd there. Right, and the Hollywood film crew. Right, that's how good these iron gates for these bin sheds are, because people around them was dumping any old rubbish in these communal bin sheds, which were meant for the flats and not the houses around, which has led to the badger problem, causing a lot of damage to people's homes. So when I went past there Friday, there was a dumped wooden bed broken up. So I'm just getting my pad and pen, writing it all out. And the lady in the house stops me. She goes, "Oh, you're that councillor, but yeah. Well, she goes, "Do you know what? That's the best I've seen it. What, just a dump bed there?" "Oh yeah." And yet this morning I opened up the email. It's not just a dump bed there now. 20 black sacks, couple of mattresses, an electric device. I think it was like a TV or a computer screen. So that's why I'd make the initial argument for Vange Library, because people in Kingswood can get there as well. Because I think in the West, because we've got to look not just as a Nevermain or a Langdon Hills councillor, we've got to look at what is going to ensure less fly tipping on the streets, and it saves the taxpayers money, because the pride teams will step in to help with the overpiling of fly tipping. But we want the pride teams cutting the vegetation, because if you look round Langdon Hills, Councillor Robbins, there's a lot of bushes. The guy's done a great job recently at that path along Highview Avenue by the Tesco's. But if the guys are having to pick up fly tipping instead of cutting bushes, this is where I'm seeing the quid pro quo. Then once the new financial year starts in early April, the next area committee, we will have, is this right, Grant and Dave, 3 crunchies for the next financial year to fund?
So I think that's one of the proposals that might be coming to the first meeting, Councillor. Yes.
So I think with the next financial year, definitely one Langdon Hills. We've got to get somewhere for Lee Chapel South and Westley Green residents to use, and people from Kingswood can use that as well. And then I think another one for Vange Hill Drive. So, did you want to speak, Councillor Murphy, or was that a silly question?
No, again, I'm fully in support of the crunches. However, and this is what I've seen them about. Now, when we had the one down opposite Trafford House, it is fundamentally a long way away from all houses. So people have to drive there. In the area of what we've just been talking about, Vange, a lot of people don't drive. It's a lot of, unfortunately, houses that low income, no cars. So even though I fully support it, obviously in Vange, to help that area, I'm not totally convinced many people are going to carry it from Vange Hill Drive or the middle of the estate up to the top. And I would hate to see it wasted. Can we just put a lorry in the middle of the estate? No.
The reason, sorry, Councillor Murphy, the reason we got pre-COVID, when they had the Smoky Joe's or the Pitsy Waste Plant, which went belly up because County do such great deals. I wonder if they got Joe Biden to sign that deal. It just had all marks of incompetency. But they had a smart barrister county and they won that case with that Pitsy Waste Plant. So the point is, all of the stuff he was putting in black waste, dust carts, was being sifted and salted because of this EU landfill tax, which is now known as the landfill tax. But it's still a tax on us. It's still a tax on Essex. It's whoever's presenting the waste to landfill pays that tax. So as we collect it, if we just throw it all in the back of a dust cart, the crunch would be significantly dearer because you're paying by the tonnage. So when we do the crunch now, as we restored it in the summer, it's not just a dust cart. There's a vehicle for metal, woods, and other things. So when you've got a small fleet of vehicles, you need a sizable car park. Because they always used to do. You mentioned Kingswood, Councillor Murphy, the car park at the playgroup centre, because you only needed one vehicle. So I asked for that, and they went, it's totally unsuitable, because once you've got the council vehicles all parked up, you're going to get residents pulling up, and there was a safety thing. This was the problem in Lee Chapel South, using that service car park in the Nares in the summer. You've got all these council vehicles to help with the recycling, because everything that is recycled is not landfill tax. That's a bit of money for the council, yeah? It's the stuff that can't be recycled. So the more stuff we can get residents to separate from the stuff that's going to landfill, it makes the crunch a bit cheaper. And actually, we should query that, what we're saving, because we're being told it's 1,500. So we might have to query the landfill tax, see if we can get a bit of money back to pay for some new bins, eh? So that's why the car park backing onto Gobins in front of Trafford House was chosen. The point, Councillor Murphy, I sympathise with a lot. But if we say Picton Swanstead to put the crunch, then I'm sure there's someone very pleasant in Polstead who hasn't got a vehicle, would struggle to pull a mattress. But I see a crunch near where I live, and I couldn't believe my eyes. There was kids with a shopping trolley. I'm not saying this should happen, but there was enterprising kids. I'd seen these kids when they're growing up the Parliament. They've got an idea of making money. And they was going around to the old dears with a shopping trolley, like, you want to fill this trolley up with junk? I'll take it away for 50p.
They did that in 5 Links.
So, do you want to say that, Councillor Robbins?
They did that on 5 Links. It was a colossal amount of stuff they shifted. And then the back of the Triangle shops, they did the same thing.
And the Triangle shops had problems because that wasn't big enough for the amount. So this is why we know, and this makes another argument for the Vange Library, we know that's suitable, and we've got to find somewhere for Langdon Hills and Lee Chapel South. So if we say yes to 1,500 quid, we've got between now and not even the 29th of March, probably the 21st of March, to give officers a location. So we've got a site in mind. We'll sort Langdon Hills and Lee Chapel South at the next financial year. And also, if someone struggles to get the mattress, they've always got good neighbours. I mean, if you're that old dear, you know, you've got a spare mattress because your other half passed away and you've got good neighbours, they say, go on Vera, throw it at the back of the van, the council's got the crunch, I'll take it down here for you. People are neighbourly. And as we said about the kids being entrepreneurial, but the point is, you try going to Pitsy Tip. We have to charge our costs, and it's £30 for at least one collection for 1 to 5 items. So it's pretty much on their doorstep. But if people want a fly tip, they come up with these excuses, but everyone else will try and find a solution. I appreciate your concerns, but the litter bugs will always have that excuse. So is there any other comments? So, Grant, Dave, can we formally recommend that the crunch be approved and it will be held at the car park at Vange Library? So that's that's the officers have indicated, Vange Library, the 29th of March. What's the times for that? Would that be like 9:30 till 12:30?
So that you've got more than one taking place on that day, haven't you, Rob?
Yeah, I'm just checking. Yeah, I think. Hang on 1 second.
And 12:30. Lovely. So we can let residents know. Councillor Murphy, let's have some decorum. So item 1, the last of the matters for consideration, is £1,500 for the crunch from the smaller pot of money, no, the bigger pot of money, to be held in the car park at Vange Library, not at Vange Library. on the 29th of March from 9 till 12:30. Those in favour? That is unanimous. So, and officers, we'd like an idea of what we're making out the metal. Because if you're making a profit, we'll have that to buy some new litter bins with. We do some great deals here, don't we, Mo? The best.
Can we possibly remove the post office little things and put them in the metal as well?
Councillor Murphy, you should know better. That's criminal damage, but the lights are off there. And if there's a metal recycler watching, we won't tell Postman Pat. Yes,
In all
Councillor.
seriousness, can I ask a question about those? I mean, the post office must have spent millions putting all those in. I thought at the time it was questionable what the hell they were doing. I know it's over the 25 kilo EEC regulation about carrying of, but it does seem that an awful lot of them in extremely bad condition. How many of them actually being used, I don't know. And are they going to be removed? Because they are just getting tattier and tattier. As the little trolleys that they brought, the American-style little trolleys, the one, I know it's not in my area, but the one in Billericay down by 1st and 2nd Avenue was chained to a tree for about 4.5 years, and it just stayed there.
We are diverging off the agenda, but I'll answer the question. As I said, I've put 2 different locations in, and it's always 5 years. But now they're a PLC. Anyone else reputable would just cut them out. But I think if they rust up and they get pinched, recycled, what have you, we're not worried about it. It was an idea at the time, but removal has a cost. And up until their recent-ish privatisation, the number on the bottom of the post box, you know, where you see the dates and times, if you complain to Royal Mail, they'd come and give it a lick of paint pretty quickly. That's out the window. They've got shareholders to pay. So we're going to go on to the next item. This is why we've got Rob Taylor here today. Street Cleansing and Pride Team. And we've obviously got Grant Taylor, the Assistant Director for Environmental Services. It's got climate change, well, I call it seasons. And open spaces to provide an update on neighbourhood-based services for street cleansing and Pride Team matters.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'll make apologies for James Hendry. James Hendry. Yeah, he was attending tonight. This presentation is something we've taken around to each of the area committees just to give you an update on where we are with the environmental services restructure. So James has now completed what is phase 1 of that restructure, and the important part of that for neighbourhood communities and from where I'm sitting is the area models that we've now put in place. So our teams and supervision reflect the ward changes, and so you have dedicated teams within each of those wards. So moving on from that, myself, Rob Baker, most of you would know me, those that do, as Parks and Countryside Manager. I've worked for the authority for many years now. My background's not always been Parks and Countryside. I did start within the street cleansing teams, moving on to refuse, so all of what I do now is not unfamiliar to me. But as part of James's restructure, I'm now the Manager of Neighbourhood Services, which covers a number of items that you've been talking about tonight, certainly around salt bins, dog bins. So anything within the neighbourhood, this now falls within my remit and my team. Sorry, Kat.
Do you cover street lighting on lampposts that we own in parks?
That's correct, Councillor, yes.
Right. I raised this with an officer. I won't embarrass him because I know he's a very good worker. His initials are SM, you know who I'm talking about. About the street lighting on Middle Hall Path, you know where that is. That is still not working. They are our lampposts. can I have an assurance to be restored lighting because there's been incidents of low-level crime and drug dealing?
So yes, councillor, that is my responsibility now. There's been a number of changes as part of the restructure. There are a number of vacancies within the team. I'm not making myself excuses. That is the reality, and that team I'm setting up at the moment. But I can certainly take that up along with Middlehall Path. I take it there's an inquiry in for that. I can certainly pick that up. I'll follow that with that. I've been in the position now for 6 weeks, so I'm still working with the teams and looking at all of what we're doing, which really brings me on to my next slide. It's not moving, so I'm. So, if I can just talk about the street cleansing side of the operations. So we're going to review all our current services, and when you talk about frequency of bins, it wasn't until a number of months ago that we didn't actually know how many bins we had in the borough. We do know that. That is now digitally known in our teams. As part of the digital programme, we will improve greater going and further down the line. Prior to that, we are doing a route mapping exercise where we'll look at our priority areas, and it is, you know, our aim that you won't be reporting litter bins that are overflowing. We accept that some areas we have bins that are misused, but we need to understand those locations, and you know, potentially we could remove them or look for a better location so they're not abused. Again, with dog bins as well, it's about reprogramming where we need our teams to be. I think also from lockdown, a lot more people have become dog owners, and I think that's also that has also impacted on the capacity of our bins.
But while James Hendry makes himself comfortable, you talk about COVID, you look in that picture, they look like them people at the end of the ET film, yeah? Yeah, they've got a bit of tree cut sweeping up with. Whoever's supplying these graphics got to do better. It's like straight off the BBC News, someone sneezed outside the Chinese embassy and they're all dressed up like that with an old broomstick sweeping up with.
Thank you, councillor. I chose that graphic. But I thought what it would reflect is the title, and that's getting the basics right. So moving on. So the high impact areas we're going to target first. So that's our shop fronts and the areas where we get our main footfall. We will use the EPA grade, so the Environmental Protection Act, to judge how well we're doing through an A, B, C and D grade of litter. That's something that we'll be installing in across all our teams in the future. We hope to implement these towards the end of May, the new routes. So, you know, I do hope to see that number of reports for overflowing bins dropping. That's something I have oversight of now. We understand where all our bins are, and the numbers are not where we want them to be, and that's certainly something we'll target to bring down. Next slide is a future design of a service design. So in a week's time, there'll be a report going to Cabinet for the options around our grounds maintenance service. Our current approach is with ID Verdi, our contractor, and there are a number of 3 options that were available: a LATCO service, an in-house service, or as is, and that's to retender the contract. What we'll be looking from that contract, the specification, is a balanced approach. So we're looking at where we can improve on biodiversity, but equally improve on making sure that we've got good amenity areas where people can have recreation and picnic. Absolutely, and using the bins. So we'll target specific areas for them biodiversities within our open spaces. We're also planning for the future with our digital programme. So that digital programme rolls out to the refuse teams in the very near future, and it is our aim to start to reintroduce that across all our services, including cleansing and where we can within our parks. Implementation of that contract is in April 2026, whatever the decision may be on the 13th, I believe, Cabinet, just coming up. The team for this area is, as I said, the area-based model. The area supervisor is Terry Simmons, good officer that's been with the authority for a number of years, good experience in many areas, and will provide an excellent support for yourself and for all the councillors within that ward. And the build-up of that team also includes our mechanical sweepers, our beat sweeps, our mobiles, graffiti teams and pride teams. I'd like to, before I go on to questions, I'd just say that I've said at each of the area meetings that in a later meeting in the future, I'd like to come back and give you an update on where we are with that reprogramming and the progress we're making so far. So I look forward to coming back in the future. For now, do you have any questions?
Just a few, Rob, just a few. Right. Now, my colleague Mo Larkin and I and Councillor Murphy represent Nethermain, and that field at the Kingswood Open Space, they joke, no Mo May. They think it is it against Mo, because throughout May, we're just being bombarded where the present contractor makes sure some corner you could play billiards on, yet that open field at the Kingswood Open Space, it's more likely to see a UFO in May than it is a grass cutter. And the kids, you know, and the parents like to play football. They've got goal posts. People have got dogs. You get long grass that attracts ticks. And there's some green spaces like that in Lee Chapel South. So in May, you know, we know what we're going to get bombarded with justifiably by the residents, where the present contractor is just like, oh, we're entering Billericay for the Chelsea Flower Show. You get Basildon start to look like a wilderness. And then the end of May, they turn up, and it's like straw all over the grass. That suppresses the grass. There's been nice fine shreds. It's like long grass cut down. So what are we going to do this year to make sure these open spaces in Langdon Hills and Evermain are cut regular during May, please?
So part of my new role as a neighbourhood manager of neighbourhood services, the Ardie Birdie contract is falls under my remit. The contract and the specification is what it currently is now, and it is my role and my team's role to ensure they're delivering on that contract. That is a challenge, I accept, and you know the revised specification that goes to cabinet in March would where you get your improvements. However, you know, it is for me now and my team to ensure we get the most out of Ardie Birdie as soon as we start cutting in April.
Well, for me, it'd be dead easy. So, Billericay, you've had your field. Basildon's getting what it's paying for. My next point, once these rotten recycling bags are gone, and we get these nice ones James sorted out, sealable like the pink sacks, what you'll notice in all the hedgerows is litter, where they've blown out the sacks. Admittedly, some of it is general lazy litter bugs just dropping their crisp packets and the like. So once the bin changes have been made, will the pride teams be able to go out if councillors nominate areas and say, could they go round this street amongst the hedge base, there's old crisp packets, tins of Coke, and because there's litter there and now people have put some lumps of bricks and things like that, will they be able to go down there and go, okay, the bin service is weekly, proper bags, and just deep clean them edges, because the weekend I was around Redgrave Road, and I thought, if I report these bits of litter in the bushes, you just need a windy day after the recycling's picked up. Again, it's not the fault of the dustman. They've been given those pathogen bags to tip out into a bin, and if it blows a crisp packet or toilet roll, they can't chase after every bit. The bins would never be emptied. So I think that's fair. After the 28th of April, we should be able to have that purge to go in the hedgerows. What about Councillor Larkin? So is that something we'll be able to start putting to the pride teams?
Thanks, Councillor. Yes, but it's something we're aware of as the cleansing teams. It's something that we want to tackle as part of shrub bed reduction as well. So reducing our shrub bed so we can get access to it, easier access to get to the litter. We'll have a programme as part of our mapping and the work that I want to do with the team is that we'll identify them problem areas, them challenging areas that we do need to tackle. But equally, we would take any areas from the ward members if they see that there's an area. I'd ask that you give us time to get us through that. It will take time. In March, April, we will have leaves on these shrubs, which will cover up a multitude of sins until next year. So it is going to be an ongoing process, but it's certainly something we want to tackle and will.
I had a question from Councillor Larkin.
A lot of people ask me, what's going to happen to these bags? Are we going to ask for them back? Are people just going to...
Yes, you're
Two questions.
Oh, Councillor Larkin, I'll answer your question first, and then you can go straight into your question. Your planning colleague, Councillor Myers, raised that at a scrutiny committee because he was worried people might get arrested by the council if they choose to keep on to their NAF pathogen recycling bag. Why, I do not know. And Councillor McGurran raised it with James Hendry. After the 28th of April, if the resident wants to keep the bag, they can. But the plan is, when the dustmen pick up the last time the recycling bag, they've tipped it out, they'll be put to one side on the truck or something like that and taken away with. Are they being recycled, James?
Thank you. Does that work okay? Yep, perfect. So there's a couple of options. We will be going around clearing them. You can bring them to barley lands. You can use them for growing potatoes in if you feel that way inclined as well. But also we've got a number of sites for the crunch on the 29th of March. So bring it to one of those sites. We'll make sure that we'll recycle them. We have got somebody who can reprocess them and recycle them as well. So there's a few avenues available to you to return them to us for recycling.
Well, yeah, well that is good because I mean a lot of people use them at boot fairs. They use them for everything that not recycling, and you know, as I brought up at a council meeting once, it was actually in the paper that they were, but somebody reported it as a UFO flying through. You know, so people are saying, what do we do with them? And if they want to keep them, they can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or if they want to dispose of them, they can go down barley lands and what have you. Just another question as well, James. Some of us have got 2 bins, that got large family. Will that continue?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Larkin. So the second bin criteria still applies for larger households. There is an application process to go through. Obviously, it's a double of the amount of capacity from April the 28th. You'll see on your second bin there's an expiry date on the permit. Yes. So if it's not needed beyond that point, you know, the permit will be invalid. But the same criteria applies. So if you're a larger household or have lots of children in nappies, for example, or additional medical waste, you can still apply and the criteria applies. The revised policy for waste and recycling that takes into account the changes has been through the Council's policy scrutiny and is also coming to Cabinet next week for adoption. But within that is you know, the additional bin policy still is contained within that. So, yeah.
I just want to say thank you, James, for all the help you've given everybody. You've been absolutely marvellous. And you, Rob. Won't forget you. Because it's nice to be able to know that you can go to somebody when people have got problems and I can get an immediate answer, which is good. Thank you.
Before I bring Councillor Murphy in, from reading the press, Brentwood's making the same mistake as this council made. They want to go to fortnightly bin collection. So the way you fix this mess in Basildon, you might be wanted after Brentwood's been merged with another council. You can charge them what you like because it'd be a bargain price to pay because you've done a great job. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, is there a council collection for yellow bin medical waste at all?
Yes, it's through, if you request it through the website, the contractor will come out. It can be done on an ad hoc or an ongoing basis depending on your clinical waste need, but all the details are on the council's website.
Thank you, James.
Right, any other questions for our lovely officers?
I'll catch James afterwards about my waste bins.
I think we're there. Is there anything else we need to bring up? No. But I'm quite glad we've got Terry Simmons. He's helpful. And the jobs we've given him for the Pride teams, he's done a spot-on job. Can't complain. And people are starting to notice it. It's looking tidier and a lot fresher. Sorry, James.
I think with your blessing, Chairman, I'll take that back to Terry and the team and pass that on. I think that's it'd be good for him to hear that, and I think that's I'm really grateful for that. So thank you for the kind words. I'll pass them on to Terry and the team, who are doing a brilliant job on the ground.
There was one question. I know we can't talk about, James, what we spoke about the other day. The number 17, is that ringing any bells?
Yes.
And it wasn't ladies, if anyone's asking. Regarding enforcement, so once we've had the bin changed on the 28th of April onwards, are we going to have a purge of these people who just think, oh, I've done what I like?
I think. Is that still working? It's gone a bit funny. I think, Chairman. So as important as the changes to service, the revised policy for waste has a section on our approach to both education and enforcement. That is again coming to Cabinet next week. It's important to make sure that we recognise that the majority of residents will do the right thing. They will make sure that they continue to recycle. They will continue to put their waste out at an appropriate time. We do have a retained education team who are able to do road shows. They go out to community groups. They can go out to schools. They can go out to wherever they're needed to help spread the message positively and to encourage our residents and support them in doing the right thing. But also we do have an enforcement team who are able to hold our residents to account, and I will remind anybody watching today that the unauthorised deposit of waste is a prosecutable offence, but even the fixed penalty notice discharge liability for that is £1,000 a time, so it's not something to do lightly.
That's helpful to know, because they are quite selfish, these fly tippers. Really are selfish. One other question, I don't know, tip of my tongue. Sorry, we were talking about fly tippings. Now you're throwing me, Councillor Murphy. We spoke about the enforcement of rubbish. Yes. What pre-spring purge are we doing with County? Because you know the walkways on the Langdon Hills estate and the walkways on Vange Hill Drive, the county can't send their guy on the moped round spraying weeds, so they have to send someone round on foot. And it started 2 summers ago. I brought it up to the then Cabinet member, Councillor Lee Scott. And Essex Highways went, oh no, we sprayed this. And this was August time that year. And went to his surgery with Councillor McGurran and the other county councillor who covers the Vange Hill Drive bit. And it was like, oh, we're ever so sorry, the contractor didn't spray it off. So you had dying weeds that we had to try and couldn't do a real proper Pride team job of, because it's that time of year and it was stretched. And again, early summer, we had the same problem again, where county happened to forget these walkways. So I think what we should do is contact county now. I will as a county member, but I think as a council we should do is say, oi, you sending your guys out, and when are they going out? because it's one thing to spray the weeds off now, but if you do what you normally do, so when they're several inches high, they finally get sprayed, and we still need to send the pride teams out to strim, when we should be making that saving with the pride teams, but not having to strim because county are clipping corners with Basildon.
Thank you, Chairman. So part of what Councillor McGarren, as the Cabinet member, has been in conversations with his equivalent at County and requested that Basildon is done earlier in the cycle. I will say we remain in dialogue, but we haven't had anything positive come back yet to suggest that that cycle is changing, but we do remain in dialogue with them, and that is one of the things that we are asking for, to be pushed further towards the beginning of the year for Basildon to get its Essex County Council paid highways weed spraying action.
Good. And the final question, this is what it was, and Grant's here. VE Day. So I see some stuff in the press today about organising public events. When is the Westley Heights Area Committee meeting next? Because this is early May VE Day weekend, and there's groups that might be wanting to ask for money or support or things in parks. So will we have a meeting before VE Day celebrations start being planned? And what have we got to? Where have we got to so far?
Okay, so obviously we'll speak with committee services in relation to the possibility, pending the calendar, of getting one in good time on that basis. I think that's a valid point, Councillor. I know the Chief Executive got a letter today from the relevant minister in relation to the proposals around VE and VJ Day. So we're speaking with the relevant department who organise events in relation to what that might look like. It would appear it's similar to what we've envisaged or seen in recent years, with the possibility of kind of community street closures and community lunches, where communities will organise them themselves, beacon lighting, as well as I guess they're the principal points that is expected locally that community can participate in.
That's helpful to know, because, as I say, I would have thought that we would have had a bit more notice, because most local authorities are under the cosh financially. So, as Councillor Larkin said earlier about sponsorship, it would have been, I mean, if anyone saw what Chelmsford City Council done when we had a previous celebration, I think it was the 75th, I will come to you, Councillor Larkin, on two main roundabouts in Chelmsford, they had an American Sherman tank made of wicker, and they had a Tiger tank made of wicker too. Thought it was a pity the Tiger weren't pointed at County Hall and the real thing. I could think of a way of getting a few of our potholes fixed. But we won't have the time to raise that sort of money for having something like that on roundabouts. We'd probably have a nice Churchill tank, wouldn't we? Have something a bit made in Britain. Councillor Larkin, you have the floor.
Well, I mean, there is things we can do, but Councillor Robbins and Councillor Green, myself, we went to a pub one, and it was fabulous. It really was. You know, the beacon was lit, and the old cars were all there, and people dressed up, pipers, a stage with them singing the songs. It was really fabulous. As a borough, we could do something like that. It'd be absolutely brilliant. Everybody enjoyed it, and there was burgers and stuff if you wanted it, but it was real VE Day. It was fabulous. And I think, why can't we do something like that?
Councillor Murphy, did you want to speak?
No, I remember the night with great joy and frozen.
Do you remember the night, Councillor Green? That's a good answer. Which one? That's a good answer. Well, you talk about Councillor Larkin getting people to dress up. If we need anyone dressed as the Germans, we'll ask Essex Highways. And we can stick some of them in the potholes too. Yeah, good.
And I'd love to do something. To do something with the people that wanted to perhaps do it as well, because it would be fabulous. I've got a clip and I can show people what a good day it was.
She went to Ukraine several times, didn't she? To
Yes.
take aid.
Yeah, I'm
It's
still waiting
amazing.
to go.
Yeah, no, really amazing.
That's lovely. And I'll just wrap it up on that. What was you saying about going? And Councillor Green said about Ukraine. Doing some sort of exchange trip out there or something?
I was going with Sarah. Oh. Sorry. With Sarah to take medical supplies out there. But it's a bit off now. We don't know what's happening because of certain things.
Well, we'll see if we can get you on the flight with Trump. And if you can, I'm coming. Right, so we'll wrap up on that point. But just something to consider and come back to us, because we all know you talk about lunches that's been put in this letter, but you need these food hygiene certificates and they all cost money. Can we help out with anyone wanting to volunteer with the food preparations in these street parties, getting the correct food hygiene certificate? Because we want to make sure everyone's safe, because people mean well. I think Councillor Larkin, we was talking to our former friend who sadly passed away, Yvonne, and someone was organising something in Craylands, raw meatballs. Now that person meant very well, but yeah, you can't serve raw meatballs to the public, so we need to make sure people have got these food hygiene certificates. But again, can we waive some people getting the costs? Because it is community groups, and I don't know what these certificates cost. £150, £200, but sorry.
I mean, the way the big lunches normally work is people come together and have lunch, but they would bring their lunch, and everyone brings their lunch, and they eat it together. So that safeguards something like that. If it's gonna be catering for other people, then yeah, it probably makes sense to bring in caterers on that basis. But yeah, big lunches. The whole concept is you bring your lunch and you eat together with your neighbours.
The reason I say that is, but I saw very briefly on the story on the BBC website, talking about barbecues as well. Now again, people mean well. They see a whole load of people, they get the fire as hot as they think it is. I have someone who whinges at me when I do a barbecue about what they do in South Africa, and I go, "Oi, this ain't South Africa. Our nights are not as warm." And they go on about the coals, and some people mean well, and they put the meat on, they think it's right, and they serve it up to members of the public. No money's exchanged, and people are going to not feel so good about it and have to have time off work. So I think if any community groups want to organise barbecues and things like that, I think we should waive the fee for that, for VE Day and VJ Day. These are community groups. If they're not charging, they're laying out for the meat and the buns and the ketchup. I think we should try and be fair-minded.
Councillor, the only fees will be in relation to any road closures, but yes, we would talk with, in previous years, we have found ways of waiving that, and I think that's something that James and myself will discuss with county colleagues as to how we might be able to do that, but there is precedent, absolutely.
Very good. I'd like to thank everyone for their time and attention tonight, because we like to bring up all our bits and pieces in our walls and talk through it. So thank you again to the officers, and our new interim monitoring officer who's been clerking tonight. So good evening and a safe journey home. Thank you.